Hello and welcome to another edition of one of our aftercare videos. I am Nisha, one of the housing advocates.
And I'm Ani, the other housing advocate. Today's video is going to be all about energy bills.
And today we will go ahead and have Carmen and Hannah introduce themselves. Take it away, ladies.
Hi, I'm Carmen Carruthers. I'm the Outreach Director for the Citizens Utility Board.
And I'm Hannah Hoger. I'm the Outreach and Communications Manager.
Great. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. We're going to cover a few really fundamental things about understanding your energy bills and being able to control them. So if we go on to the next slide, please. So first of all, just a bit about our organization. We're called the Citizens Utility Board of Minnesota, and we're a nonprofit independent consumer advocate. So our role is to help energy consumers make the best decisions they can for their households. And we work on policy issues at the state legislature. We get involved when utilities are trying to raise their rates. And Hannah and I also provide direct service to consumers all across the state. And one of those things that we'll talk about at the end is we give free energy bill consultations. So definitely keep that in mind if you have specific questions about your bills or want some help being able to manage them in a very specific way for your household. We'll go on to the next slide, please. Okay, so one of our big messages when it comes to managing your energy bills is really focusing on what you can control. The whole point of that is really trying to avoid surprises because energy is an important part of your household budget. And we want to make sure you have all the information you need to try to keep that budget as manageable as possible. So if you're renting, please keep in mind that your housing costs include both rent and utilities. So understanding like what utilities you're responsible for per your lease is very important to avoid those surprises. And if you are going to be responsible for energy bills, and it's pretty common, especially to be responsible for an electricity bill, sometimes you'll be responsible for heating too. But to ask that landlord when you're looking for a new place, what are those average energy costs so that you have a good understanding of what you're getting into and know what your rights and responsibilities are per your lease. So for example, if you happen to be renting, say, a house and you're responsible for heating, you might also be responsible for switching out filters in that furnace. If you're renting an apartment, it's less likely you'll be responsible for heat and you'll just be focusing on electricity. But it's important to know what those responsibilities are and what your rights are. What's also important for folks who are going to be living in Minneapolis is starting in 2021, the residents of Minneapolis will have the right to find out what the cost of energy is. And that's going to be called the time of rent energy disclosure. So that's something that you should be made aware of at the point that you're renting your unit. We'll go on to the next slide, please. Okay, the other thing important when we talk about managing our bills is understanding what drives our bills. And so when you look at this chart, this is a breakdown of how an average home in Minnesota uses energy. And you'll notice that heating and cooling is over half of our energy use. So really focusing on the ability to manage your heating and cooling will provide opportunities for you to save energy, to save money. And the other uses of energy in our homes include water heating, appliances, lighting, and electronics. And just a note about electronics, now with a lot of folks being at home more, homeschooling, possibly working from home, we're using a lot more of these gadgets all the time. So where it's typically a pretty small percentage of our energy use, right now it's probably a bit more than that. So just be aware of that, unplug things, make sure stuff is really turned down. But otherwise, you know, getting a sense of where you have opportunities to save money has a lot to do with these categories. Go on to the next slide, please. Okay, and now we want to show you a couple bill examples, just to give you a sense of what is kind of typical in terms of how energy use changes over the seasons and over the months. So we have two examples. The first is an Xcel Energy bill. And if you look at the bar charts, you can see 13 months of usage from August to another August. And this pattern is pretty typical of most homes in Minnesota. You'll see the summer months have the highest usage, and that's because of air conditioning typically. If a home doesn't have air conditioning, usually that will be pretty flat. Their bill won't have a big peak in the summertime. If you look in the winter months, so if you kind of see that we call a mini peak, December, January, February in particular, you'll see usage is up a little bit again. And in the winter months, it's pretty typical that we're, even in non-COVID years, we're home more, the lights are on more, we might be cooking at home more, having some company over, and the furnace is running, which requires electricity. So these things will add to a small mini peak. When we see really high peaks of energy usage in the winter, one of the first questions we'll ask is, are you running a space heater? And space heaters are notorious for using huge amounts of energy. So as much as you can avoid using a space heater or managing that, that will be really helpful for your electricity bills. And now if we move over to the natural gas bill, if you happen to be responsible for paying for heat, it's likely going to be in the form of natural gas. So this is a CenterPoint example. Xcel also provides natural gas service in the East Metro. So you'll notice a big peak in the winter months, and that's very typical because the natural gas is primarily for heating. But if you happen to have a gas water heater, a gas stove or oven, or a gas dryer, that will also contribute small amounts of gas usage throughout the year. So these sorts of bills are really what's a kind of a typical pattern for a Minnesota home. We can go on to the next slide now. Okay, and we wanted to break down an Xcel energy bill for you, just to give an example of where there are areas that you can control your energy usage and to understand what all those line items are about, because as you can see, there's a lot. So we've color coded these. The first thing we want to talk about are fixed costs. So fixed costs are things that we don't have any control of. We just have to pay regardless of how much energy we consume. So in Xcel, depending on where you live, you're going to have a basic service charge of either $8 or $10. And that's just set before you use any amount of energy at all. And then there's also an affordability charge that is just under $1. And so this program, we want to point this out. It goes into a fund that if you are eligible for a program called Energy Assistance, which Hannah's going to talk about in a little bit, you can also sign up for additional programs that reduce your bills even further. This is how that money gets put into that fund for additional bill reductions in a program called Power On in the gas affordability program. And so if you happen to be participating in those programs, you won't actually see this charge on your bill. But we like people to understand that they're helping contribute to this very important program through their bills. Now, if we go to look at the green items, we have what are called variable costs. And so this means that the amount that you're spending in these line items varies according to your energy use. And so we want to point out a couple important things with this. When you look at the energy charge line items, the lines 2 and 3, you'll notice there's a summer charge and a winter charge. And Xcel Energy charges different rates at different times of the year. So if you look at the summer charge, you'll notice that it's higher. And then the winter charge is lower. This bill straddles the months of May and June. And the summer charges are June, July, August, and September. The rest of the rates are winter time. And what's important to know is that most people, per our previous slide, use the most energy in the summer because of air conditioning. You're actually using more and you're paying more for what you use. So it's very common to see your highest bills in the summertime. And then there's a couple other line items that get passed through to consumers as well, the fuel cost charge, decoupling adjustment. And then we also want to point out the resource adjustment line. That's another source of funding that goes to help consumers. And this goes into rebate programs. So if you're ever in a position where you're going to buy a discounted LED light bulb, or if you get into a position where at some point you're owning a home and you have to replace your furnace or air conditioning, you can be eligible for a rebate. And that's where that funding comes from. So also important to note. And then just a couple other brief things before I turn it over to Hannah. There are also some saver switch programs. If you happen to be in a home that has central air conditioning, with your landlord's permission, you can sign up for a program called the Saver Switch. And they put a device on your air conditioner, and during peak times, they can control your usage for 15 to 20 minutes at a time during peak times. And to reward you for that ability to control demand for electricity, you get 15% off your bill all summer long, which is especially helpful knowing that our electricity bills are higher in the summer. And if you happen to have an electric water heater, you can participate in a similar program. And then finally, taxes and fees in the blue areas. So depending on where you live, it's going to look a little different. Every community is a little bit different. But what's important to note is all those taxes and fees are based on that subtotal. So the lower you can get the main part of your energy bill, the lower your taxes and fees will be. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Hannah.
All right, so we talked a little bit about bills. Now, if you are behind on your utility bills and you're struggling to juggle various like rent, mortgage, what have, Energy Assistance can be a really big help trying to unload that burden a little bit. Energy Assistance Program provides financial help to income qualified households for covering natural gas and electric bills. And renters as well as homeowners are eligible. And then and they can also help cover emergency heating repairs as well. So say your furnace breaks down in the middle of winter. And then each county has different providers, but specifically if you are in Hennepin or Ramsey County, we've attached phone numbers right there. You can find your local provider as well as details on how to get the application started. And if you're in another county, please call that toll-free 1-800 number as well. And if you look at the graph that we have right there, you can kind of get a good idea to see if you might be eligible for energy assistance. Like I said, energy assistance is eligibility depends on household size and income. And application requires you to provide the past 3 months of your income, and then you just look to see how many people live in your home. This can also include roommates as well, so you don't have to be related like family relations. And then in addition, if you have received a disconnection notice, or you could be eligible as well for another grant that Energy Assistance has, which is a different pool of money called crisis grants. And that can help pay off past arrears you have as well. And then it's really important as well, applications have already opened and they go through till May 31st, but we always encourage people to apply as soon as possible, just because funding is first come, first serve. So it is limited. All right, next slide, please. All right, and then some really easy ways to just reduce your energy use this winter is, like we had mentioned when we looked at that graph about how energy is used in your home, is just adjusting your thermostat. The Department of Energy recommends adjusting your thermostat at 68 when you're home, and then differentiating that up to 10 degrees while you're asleep or away from home. Now, that's not comfortable for everyone, and we totally understand that. So it's just important to find that balance between comfort and energy savings, so you're not sacrificing your comfort and health, but it's for, and then also seeing how much you want to be saving energy at the same time. And we generally, they generally say you can save up to 3% for each degree you adjust. So take it by degree to see what feels comfortable for you. And then never lower than 55, just to prevent your pipes from freezing and avoiding that happening. And if you do have a programmable thermostat, it makes it really easy to just manage your temperature if you have it set at certain times when you wake up, when you fall asleep as well. And then layers are friends in the winter. So if you have blankets, put on extra fleece, anything to help you not crank up your thermostat as much. And then as much as possible, trying to avoid or minimize space heater usage. Space heaters can be a really extra cost, especially on when we see Spikes in the winter on your electric bill, one of the first questions we ask families is, oh, are you running a space heater? Just because you can, that's how much of a jump you can tell. So trying to minimize space heater use either to one room or if it's on a timer, just trying to manage how much you use it as well. Next slide, please. And then some additional things you can do to help manage your energy use in the winter is just turning off and unplugging electronics. One of the easiest ways to do that is just considering the use of power strip. And it's really important for power strips that they're only effective if you turn them off. So that's something that I've kind of had to learn to do myself as well, especially if you have a home entertainment system or if you have a gaming console. If you plug all of those things into a power strip, making sure after you're done with it at the end of the day to flip it off. And then as much as possible, using LED light bulbs, they can be 80 to 90% more efficient than incandescents. So if you still have those incandescents right now within your home, really investing in LED light bulbs can save you a couple bucks in the year to come. And then if you have a dishwasher running on full loads, and then especially if you have a heat setting, turning that off and just opening up your dishwasher and letting your dishes air dry. And then running full loads of laundry as much as possible. And then washing with warm water and then cold water if, for instance, you didn't have, like we usually say, like, especially during COVID right now, if you want to make sure you're killing all the bacteria, you can still instead of doing hot water, considering a warm wash instead. All right, next slide, please. Oh, that's it. Okay. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And then just to remember, if you have any questions, if you're interested in an energy consultation with us, please feel free to contact us with that email or that phone number below. If you have any follow-up questions as well, visit our website. We post a lot of tips and things on Facebook as well as our Twitter handle. And then last but not least, don't forget to take the quiz at the end of this to earn points towards your certification. Thanks, everyone.